Let's talk about picks. Welcome to L Taylor Guitar, where I upload loads of guitar related videos. Sometimes it's gear reviews, sometimes it's tutorials on specific licks or tricks or techniques or bits of music theory. Sometimes it's music technology and composition as well. So if that sounds of interest to you, you should subscribe to the channel so we can hang out every Friday at 4 PM GMT. Anyway, on with the show. Guitar picks, sometimes called plectrums, are one of the most important pieces of guitar gear. They're also one of the most inexpensive and probably something that you'll end up buying loads of throughout your guitar playing career. Even if you end up playing fingerstyle, classical or jazz guitar, you're probably going to start learning with a pick before you decide to not use one. This video is intended for beginner guitarists who need some information before buying guitar picks, but there's also going to be a fair bit of information for advanced players as well. So these are the main attributes of guitar picks, which I'm going to go over in detail one at a time. The thickness of the pick, the shape and size of the tip, the shape and size of the guitar pick itself, and the material it's made out of. So let's start with thickness. Thickness is measured in millimeters, which is written as mm. Thickness tends to range from 0.3 millimeters, usually up to 1.5 millimeters, but you can get 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters, and well beyond that if you really want. Generally, thinner picks are better for chord-based strumming, whilst thicker picks are better for riffs or lead guitar. You may want a slightly thicker pick, let's say 1 millimeter if you're playing lead electric guitar, because it allows you better accuracy when you only want to play a single note at a time. The release of thicker picks is much better than thinner ones. Release is the time it takes when you first hit a string, the time it takes for the pick to bend back to its normal shape. For strumming, it doesn't really matter, but for single notes, you need that pick to be as rigid as possible. If you're playing chord-based rhythm guitar and you're doing a lot of strumming, go for a thinner pick, but be warned, the thinner you get, you start to risk volume loss, especially in the bass register. I would say anything under 0.6 millimeters is at risk of that. But that's maybe only something you'll notice on acoustic guitars. So if you're an acoustic player, be aware of that. If you're a bass player who wants to use a pick, which is fine, by the way, you probably want to go for something 1.5 millimeters or thicker. Tip shape. For lead players, you generally want a sharper point to your pick. As with the thickness of the pick, that basically allows for greater accuracy when picking your notes. Whereas for strumming, you probably want something with a slightly more rounded tip. Obviously there'll be some crossover, so you can get various iterations of really pointy, really rounded, and anything in between. Shape and size of the pick. Let's look at a jazz pick to begin with. These are quite small, I guess because of the delicate and precise nature of jazz playing. And on the flip side of that, you can get massive triangular plectrums, which I guess bass players might prefer because of the relative size of the pick to the larger bass strings. The bigger a pick is, the wider it is, the greater the risk of it breaking though, which is exactly why I don't have one to show you. Generally, the only variation in shape is down to the size of what you want to hold, and I suggest going to a guitar shop and trying out different ones, move it around your fingers, and if you happen to drop one, maybe that's too small for you. And the last thing I want to talk about with the shape of picks is thumb picks, which go on the thumb, and you don't even have to hold them. So these picks which slot over the thumb, these are used by country players, blues players, some jazz players, especially by banjo players as well as guitar players, and they allow you to swap between strumming, like a normal pick if you just want to pick notes as you normally would, and a technique called hammer claw, which is where you use your thumb to pick bass notes and then your fingers will pick chords or individual strings on top. So it's kind of like separating out, like the left and right hands of a piano, I guess. The benefit of a thumb pick like that rather than just using your thumb is that you get much greater definition in those specific notes. Moving on to material. Picks used to be made out of wood, stone, and quite commonly tortoise or turtle shell, but nowadays are made out of various different plastics. Some guitar pick manufacturers may reference turtles in their branding, but don't worry, they haven't actually made turtles homeless. It is completely illegal to sell and manufacture turtle or tortoise picks now. There is a massive variety in the different plastics used to create guitar picks, and they all feel and sound slightly different. For example, Tortex picks are slightly rough and kind of have a powdery feel, which can kind of aid grip. But the best way to tell is really to walk into a guitar shop, feel every single one of their picks, and just see which one feels the best to you. So in addition to the various plastic picks, you can get metal picks, which sound metallic, oddly enough. They're a bit more expensive than plastic picks, which can be a problem if you do accidentally throw it across a room, which will happen. I quite like the sound of them, but I don't like the feel when I hold it, so I tend not to use them. Felt picks, which are really thick. These are often used by bass players who want something dense that they can hold on to, but they don't want the kind of snap that a plastic pick will give them. I think they're intended for ukulele players, but hey, if you want to try a felt pick on guitar, give it a go. And there are companies specializing in wood picks, stone picks, probably anything really. They'll all have a really specific feel, but I wouldn't recommend any of those really expensive picks as a beginner. Before we move away from material, I just want to really stress, don't try and track down a turtle or tortoise shell pick, because they sound like crap, and moreover it's completely illegal. The only reason they were commonplace is because they are really dense and they don't ever break. But the fact is, they sound naff, and now we have science, so that's completely irrelevant. Don't go hunting down turtle shell picks. So as a kind of sub part of material, I want to talk about textured picks. Basically, you can get these picks which have either a kind of textured grip or a kind of sandpaper element to the grip area. The sandpapery ones with the really fine texture, I hate. I just don't like the feel of it. I can sort of hold it here and it's fine, but the second you pick a string, it just feels uncomfortable. I don't like it. Dunlop have made a really nice textured grip pick. They were cool enough to, I think a couple of years ago, send me a box of Dunlop gear, and these are inside them. These are called the Nylon Max Grip by Dunlop. I use the 1mm thickness, and they just have a bit of texture on them. It means that you can hold on to them a lot better. I hated them at first, but I sort of got used to never letting go of my picks, and now I really like them, and these are my default picks. If you're interested, you can get a pack of 12 for about £5 on Amazon, just by the way. As I've said before, the best bet really is to go into a guitar shop and feel all the different picks, all the different textures, all the different sizes, and just see what works for you, and whatever your instinct says, that's the thing to get, assuming they're not massively expensive, which some picks can be. Or you could take the Brian May approach and just use whatever you have lying around. I think he used a coin of some kind. So in the interest of science, here are a few things I'm going to try out. Well, that's no good. Scrabble piece. Bottle cap. That's a firm no. SD card. Let's use it this way. Diamond pick. So there we go, that was my beginner's guide to choosing guitar picks with just a little bit of information for advanced players. I really hope that's useful to you. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave them in the comments section below. That's what it's for. And I hope that when you subscribe, you also hit the bell icon that appears next to the subscribe button, because that will send you an update whenever I release a new video or do a live stream. Thanks so much for hanging out. I will see you next Friday at 4 PM GMT. Toodaloo.